We'll get into it. So that's about framework. Here we'll understand why effective management of privileged identities requires a complete closed loop process. It cannot be just securing it. You have to close it from each of these cycles. So you have while creating, provision, locate, identify, label privileged identities. You have assign appropriate owner to it, change the password of the use, deprovision, remove access to the privileged ID once the user is terminated. That's from the lifecycle standpoint. From privileged identity management process-wise, define privileged roles and entitlement, provision, deprovision, privileged IDs, and shared ID pools, request, approve, revalidate privileged access, enforce OS control, enable accountable sharing, monitor and audit report. So that's the cycle of it. Now, in case of shared accounts, so you start with requesting an access. Then the access is approved. Then you get into the provisioning mode. In this case, it's based on the need. So let's say I want to use it now, then only then you'll get access to the ID. That's we call it as checkout. And then when you're done with your activity, you return it. That's where we call it as check-in. So that's one. Next is access revalidation, and then the access terminations. So that's the overall, why it requires the complete loop, closed loop process for privileged identities. Now we'll talk about the product, IBM Privileged Identity Manager. So PIM, IBM Security Privileged Identity Manager, provides a solution for organizations to address the end-to-end lifecycle management of accounts, single sign-on, and handling of privileged IDs across both systems and applications. So basically, it's the identity management system. Plus, you have single sign-on, and then you also have reports. Now, there are sub-components I would call in this solution. You have IBM Security Identity Manager, which helps you in the setting up the approval workflows to enforce least privileges and business need to know. Ensure password management, regular password changes. Centralized ID management, password management, secured credential vault, improves overall security and adds more control. So now the vault is, the secure vault is part of IBM Security Identity Manager. Then you have IBM Security Access Manager, that is ESSO. It does the automated check-in, check-out and check-in and injections of credentials without user knowing the privileged account password. Single sign-on of all privileged IDs with strong authentication. Now when we say injection of credentials, we'll get to know what exactly it means. Most of us know. So for those people who have no idea of what the injection of credentials is, basically you have some interface where you want to log in with ID and password. Now this ID and password is automatically injected to the form or a dialog where the application is integrated. So that's where the credential injection comes in. So there is a manual and automated way. We'll talk about it. So you have on the right side you have QRadar, which helps you in advance custom reports, which will give you a holistic intelligence on identity and access management plus the other network devices to give you a bird's eye view on the behavior and the intelligence of how the user is coming, what route he is taking, what IDs, or with what servers he has logged in, and all those detailed level reports you can get it using QRadar. Then you have Tivoli Common Reporting and Auditing System. This is more focused with the ITIM and ISIM, and there are other components it also can interact, but there are canned reports for ISAM and ISIM shared access management reports. You can even customize it. There are tools to customize. There are designers which can help you customize the reports. So that's about the introduction. So 1 minute. Okay. So newly introduced privileged identity management concept. Now this is the new thing we are bringing into privileged identity management. What I have is left side I have the best technical controls concepts. Right side I have Privileged Identity Manager, where I'm going to map these with the features available there. First is user gets ID on a system only if required by the business. That is through this is controlled by a self-service user interface request and approval workflow. So there is a UI through which you could make a request, and only it's approved, you'll get access. Next is user gets ID on a system only when required by the business. So this can be controlled by using ISIM's check-in checkout function. The ID or the user gets access only when he really makes a request to the server. It's kind of a real time with a pre-approved role or a pre-approved access. So that is one. Next, user gets ID on a system only till business requires user to have it. So now this you can control by having the recertification policies in place. So you can recertify, there are companies who do it quarterly or yearly or, once in a year or two. So it's configurable, and you can, recertify at various department level or, to the whole company level. So you have next, user should not know or view the password. So this is quite a secure way of, making sure that administrator does not know the password. So this makes it quite safe and secure, because let's say I'm an administrator and I want to do my activity. I don't have to know the password, but I get the session in my screen or in my desktop to that server. So I don't know the password, but I'm logged in automatically, which is like a safest thing, because even if let's say I'm terminated from the company, I don't know the password. So there's no way, the misuse can happen. So this can be controlled by ISIM configuration and automated credential injection. So that's here. Next, this is more with the, this is to counter ID proliferation. This is using the reusable ID concept. Now, earlier we talked about having one ID for a user on every system. Now, or several users, there are 10. We talked about identity proliferation, right? So now the other way is we'll have one ID without losing the accountability. It's being shared across the set of users. That's where the feature here is this can be leased by one administrator at a time using manual or automated check-in, check-out process. So this is for single reusable credential. So it could be your root ID or it could be administrator ID. Now this can be shared across administrators, but this is going to be like one at a time. Now when you have several users requiring access to these privileged IDs, then you can have pool of IDs, and based on the usage, you could instead of having, let's say, 100 servers are there, I need 100 IDs on that. It could be 100 or 200 IDs at the max. But if there are like 500 administrators, I don't need 5 into 200. Now I need just 200 IDs, so that it reduces down. These administrators who need that ID are going to do a checkout and use this ID and return it back. Now the pool can be configured based on the number of users who are going to use this system at any given point of time. So it's kind of safe and secure, and it reduces the number of IDs drastically. So that's the new concept which has which is part of IBM Privileged Identity Manager. So right side, we still we talked about reduces the number of individual IDs. We talked about so the moment IDs are reduced, correct? So now the deprovisioning activities also go down drastically. So which is a less load on on the servers for creating IDs and deleting, and same way it helps in achieving compliance, doing the revalidations. It reduces the time cycle drastically. Next, you can have the centralized authentication using Active Directory or IBM Directory Server. The features of this Privileged Identity Manager. There's one more nice feature out there. It's called SACLI, that is Shared Access CLI, which is command line interface, which can help automate the scripts. So let's say you have your scripts to run the jobs. So you could automate the scripts to check out these credentials on the fly and inject into the into the jobs and return it once the job is up and running. So this is the benefit of having, and these are this will put a complete control on the privileged IDs. So you as a user, as a privileged user, can run this service with your individual ID, but in the background it's going to use the privileged ID to run the job. So that's the cool thing of this, and these are the new concepts. Okay, so next slide. So we're talking about here key functions. Centralized management of privileged and shared identities, which helps because it's centralized. You have every inventory of all the IDs across the environment in one place. Role-based entitlement to the shared identities, secured access and storage of shared ID credentials. It's centralized, secured, stored in one place. Request privileged ID access, approvals, and recertifications. Is a way you could do it. You could make request, seek approvals, recertify, check for SOD violations or separation of duties violations before even assigning the roles. So that's kind of cool thing. Manual and automated check-in, check-out of reusable privileged identity credentials. Privileged access role membership recertification. You can even recertify the role for the privileged user, and then based on the role. Ability to change password of usable credentials after the use. Now let's say I am a privileged administrator. I have checked out these credentials. So somehow, let's say I managed to, get the password, and now, I could go in and change the password. But in this case, the moment you close the session, password will be automatically changed. So that's a good thing about it. So this makes sure that it's totally accountable. So whoever has checked in or returned the credentials, the moment he closes the session, it's, passwords for that credentials are changed automatically. Auditing of shared credentials, their access, events, etc. End-to-end monitoring and reporting. Delegate management of IDs and access policies to respective resource owners. Automated password change that we talked about. Automatic check-in when client closes the application or the client application is closed. Automatic termination of client application upon lease expiry. So let's say you can set the lease here. Let's say there's a checkout. I can't, I can keep this ID for a while, but no, we can have a control on it, like how long he can keep it. So 4 hours to do his activity, 3 hours, you can have that limit set. And once the limit is crossed, you could have an option to enforce, to terminate the session, or you can have the violation list or a report generated so that you can take action accordingly. Next, strong authentication to RFID cards, smart cards, and fingerprint biometrics. Whatever in today's date ISAM ESSO supports, you can have it integrated over here. So that's about key features. There I have listed capability and the benefits here. Centralized privileged identity management improves IT governance and reduces risk. Securely share privileged identities, avoids the high cost of identity proliferation. That's the key feature of it. Automate sign-on and check-in, check-out with strong authentication, increases security. Wide variety of out-of-box adapters and pre-configured access profiles, improves time to value. Full identity management and enterprise single sign-on capabilities, provides comprehensive solution for tracking, reporting with accountability and compliance. Integration with broader identity and access management governance portfolio. Common identity infrastructure for privileged and non-privileged users, reduces the operations cost. Now you're having everything here. You're having identity management and privileged identity management in one product. So that's the beauty of it.